Welcome to Oakdale Bible Baptist Church. My name is Brother Elden Mayo. I am the pastor. We are teaching a short series on the Doctrine of Civic Duties. Doctrine of Civic Duties. We are on segment 4. This should be a short segment, but today we will look at our duty of taxes. This is everyone's favorite. We will again read the section that we build this doctrine from, the foundational segment. In the book of Luke, in chapter 20, this time I'll read from verses 20 to 25, the same section that we read on our first segment. And we read here, speaking about the scribes, it says, "And they watched him and sent forth spies, which should feign themselves just men, that they may take hold of his words, that they may deliver him unto the power and authority of the governor. And they asked him, saying, Master, we know that thou sayest and teachest rightly, neither acceptest thou the person of any, but teachest the way of God truly." It's amazing how people will flatter you when they really want to get you. "Is it lawful for us to give tribute unto Caesar or not?" But he perceived their craftiness and said unto them, "Why tempt ye me? Show me a penny. Whose image and superscription hath it?" They answered and said, "Caesar's." And he said unto them, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which be Caesar's, and unto God the things which be God's." And so we have spoken these last 3 segments about things which are Caesar's, things which we owe our governments. And we spoke to prayers and obedience, and then the various different duties of rulers and of servants. And today we come to taxes. Of course, remember this whole subject here was about taxes. The whole controversy which was being brought up was whether or not to pay taxes to a government which was unwanted and which was notoriously unjust. And Jesus said to render unto Caesar the things which be Caesar's. In other words, he said, pay your taxes. Let's turn to Romans in chapter 13. We've been reading here for the last 3 segments and going into this. And I will read from verse 1 to verse 7. Again, the entirety of everything that we've read so far. Paul here said, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinances of God. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath on him that doeth evil. Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake." And now we come to verses 6 and 7, which we have not covered yet. "For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor." Again, the scriptures are very clear. Pay your taxes. I will turn now to the book of Luke. And I know you may be looking for a loophole. It's not in here. In Luke in chapter 2. And I want this to be a reminder of how the whole gospel story, of the birth of Jesus Christ, how it came to pass, what was going on during those days. Well, we read in Luke chapter 2, "And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed." And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, and all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And what did Joseph do, that just man? "And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth unto Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was the house and lineage of David, to be taxed, with Mary his espoused wife, being great with child." Joseph was obedient to the taxing which was placed on them by a government, by the way, which was not desired of the Jewish people. There are many objections that are given to paying taxes. It's too much. Well, it may be too much. I don't doubt that. As a matter of fact, if we have failed in our duties as rulers, as equitable rulers, if we have failed to watch those who we've hired to represent us, if we've not monitored them, if we've not required of them to be faithful to what we want, if we've been willing to let spending get out of hand, then sure, it's too much. But that's our own fault, is it not? If we're indeed the rulers of our own nation, if it's too much, is that not our own fault? And the objection comes back, well, I know other people don't. My daddy never paid taxes on this, or my preacher doesn't pay taxes on this, or my best friend or my brother or the other people at work don't pay taxes on this. It may be true. But I'll remind you that we'll all stand and give an account to God for ourselves. And you won't give an account for them, but you will give an account for yourself. I'm not telling you to pay your taxes because I'm an agent of the government. I'm not recommending you to pay your taxes so you stay out of jail. I'm telling you that Christians need to pay their taxes for conscience sake, because the Scriptures direct us to pay our taxes. You may say, well, we have a wicked government. Our government supports abortion, for example. Well, I understand that's true, and it does. And I'm not for that. And I don't like a lot of things that go on and that are supported by tax dollars. And you probably don't as well. What's the answer then? Pay your taxes. There's no loophole for that in here. Understand that the very Roman government that we're talking about in here, that was over the Jewish people at the time and over all of Christianity at the time which it was born, took tax money to support false temples for false gods, to support their worship. It was the rulers of the land who, using the tax money to give to their enforcers of the law, had Christians rounded up and persecuted. And so what was the instruction? Pay your taxes. So how can I excuse you or I? I cannot. Pay your taxes. And I know other things come back. Well, if I don't pay taxes, I can support missionaries, or I can give that money to my church instead. Well, sinning for God has never been the answer. And fraud is sin. Now, please bear in mind, I am not instructing you to be ignorant. I'm not instructing you to ignore deductions which have been set in place to make the tax code fairer for you. I'm not trying to tell you to ignore things that you can write off or any such thing. I'm not telling you to pay more taxes than what is fair. If something has been assessed to you to pay taxes on and you do not believe it's just, I'm not telling you not to contest it. I'm simply telling you that whatever taxes have been assessed that you know are due, pay them. Do your duty. These things are straightforward in Scriptures, and they are for us to do. I cannot tell you to enjoy paying taxes. I don't either. But I can tell you that if we really honor God, we'll honor His Word. And where His Word commands for us to do our duty and to pay our taxes, rather than to be deceitful, rather than to be fraudulent, rather than to lie, we will pay our taxes. Now, this has been probably the shortest of the segments, and as it well should be. I hope you'll also listen to the last of the segments on the doctrine of the civic duty. Until then, goodbye.